It's just a little camera. That's right. It's Peterbilt Mike back. Hey guys, Mike here. I just wanted to introduce my dad. This is Jim Chamberlain, my dad, the man that gave me the addiction that I have. Started driving. When did you start driving? 18?
Yeah, well, right out of high school.
Right out of high school. So
1964.
1964. So he started driving in 1964 and he's still hauling logs. Not because he has to, but because he wants to. Because
it's fun.
Yeah, doing what you want to do, not what you have to do, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So what advice would you have for the younger generation?
Quit whining and just go to work.
Quit whining and go to work. That's some good advice right there. And everybody talks about the good old days and, oh yeah, the 359s were great and all the good old days and the good old trucks. What would you have to say to someone who likes the old trucks versus the new trucks? What's the biggest difference between the new and the old trucks?
Comfort.
Comfort?
Just strictly comfort. But we never worked the long days either. And if we'd worked the long days like we do now, you couldn't stand the old trucks. No air conditioning. And like the first truck I drove had the exhaust pipe out through the hood.
Yeah.
You'd be deaf by now. And they were good, but then we worked short days. We didn't work these long days like we do now.
So back in the day, what would be a normal startup?
Well, I used to go to work. If I was first truck, I went to work at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And we all used to go for coffee at the Little Chief Cafe in Squamish, and toast and coffee was 2 bits.
Wow.
The only time you didn't was when you're first truck and you had to leave at 6 o'clock. And we're always finished by 5:36. Made our 2 trips and went home.
Wow. So technically things were better lifestyle back then, but maybe not I guess not as much comfort.
Not as much comfort, that's
not as much horsepower, not as much sound deadening.
It's like fast. I was up here in Prince George in the wintertime hauling into Upper Fraser and coming up through the old Hansard mill site with a 250 Cummins with 100,000 net. I was in first, second. I had picked up a spill load, highway load, which was just about the same weight with my self-loader, went up the same hill at 50 miles an hour.
Wow.
So, but we also didn't haul that far.
Yeah.
Like right now, I'm probably just about 100 miles from the mill.
Wow.
1 trip a day. And it's 10 hours, 11 hours. And you couldn't do it in an old truck.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't stand it. The new trucks are tough.
Yeah.
I don't care what anybody says. The new trucks are way tougher than the old trucks ever thought of being. If you pounded the old trucks like we pound them now, they'd be just broke down all the time.
Wow.
But,
I guess it's the same old story. You still had problems back then. You don't remember the bad stuff. All you remember is the good stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. We had lots of good times. We had lots of bad times.
Yeah.
At 30 below, you had brakes froze up all the time.
Yeah.
And we didn't have air dryers, and you drained your air tanks every night. Otherwise, you go in the morning, you're all froze up. But now, you don't even need to plug the trucks in. They start on their own.
Yeah, true enough. Now you run the lightweight 1030 oil, or you run run a synthetic that's light, and yeah, it's a whole different story from 40 weight and the outside oil fillers or oil cans. They're the big, what were the oil cans on the side called?
Lubrifiners.
Lubrifiners, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And lots of times in the cold, your steering box would shrink and your steering gets so stiff you couldn't steer it. So you had to pull the bottom cap off and make a paper washer to get more clearance for your steering box.
Oh, wow.
And it was not a big deal, but after you did it, then of course your steering box wouldn't shrink and get so tight you couldn't steer.
Yeah.
And
I still remember the story that Dad told me about when you were working up in Prince George in the wintertime, going back to Squamish. I think it was for Christmas or something.
Yeah.
You're riding the bus with a doctor.
Yeah. And we made the same money, only he worked 8 hours a day and I worked 12.
And what year do you think that was?
That would have been 65, 66, 67, somewhere in there.
Yeah. So when you look at how the evolution of trucking has, it used to be that a truck driver made the same money as a doctor, just worked different hours.
Just a young doctor starting out, but I was a young truck driver starting out.
Yeah.
And I made good money compared to everybody else.
Wow.
And I was, like in Squamish, I was the youngest logging truck driver.
Yeah.
And you listened to the old timers, they told you what to do. And if you didn't do it, you weren't a logging truck driver.
Yeah, right.
And, we real steep country, and, you had to scratch your way up the hill and slide down. If you slid too much, you'd bugger up your tires, and you'd bugger up the road. And there wasn't graders all the time, and so if you buggered up the road, you had to live with it.
Yeah, right.
But now, I mean, like last winter, we had a grader every day on our bush road.
Wow.
And guys are still complaining and sliding down around a corner that was no need to even slide on. But
Yeah.
they won't listen. You can't tell them nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I guess that's probably the biggest problem with even the young generation is the entitlement, and I guess, with coming with I don't know. I don't like to say that everybody's entitled, because they're not, but I guess it's that thing where people, there's so much access to information that people think they know it all, but at the end of the day, you got to learn from the veterans, and keep your mouth shut, your ears open, and
Pretty
that sort of
much.
stuff, so.
You got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use your ears twice as much as you use your mouth.
Yeah, that's some good advice right there. So
Told to me actually by a truck salesman.
oh, there you go.
Years ago.
Maybe I'll just keep my mouth shut.
Well, you gotta listen.
Yeah, smile and nod.
Yeah, pretty much. But I mean, there's lots of good drivers out there too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like here now, like with this show and shine. There probably wasn't a whole lot more than this many trucks in Prince George years ago as there is here. And this is not even close to what there is in town now.
Yeah, true enough.
And how many trucks pass you and you don't even notice them? I mean, they're all good drivers.
Yeah.
You'd notice the bad ones, and that's all.
Yeah, and the good guys, you never notice the good guys. You always notice the bad guys.
Yeah,
So
there's lots of really good guys too.
yeah.
But
Well, and like, I know for myself, somebody was commenting about, the amount of fancy trucks and, talking about money and logging. I don't know that it's necessarily money and logging, but just people taking pride in what they do.
it's a different attitude now too. At one time they thought, logging trucks, you don't want them fancy, because there wasn't the pride in there was pride in your trucks, but not like chrome. I remember first time I had a chrome stack and thought, oh wow, I'm really got something here. Well,
Yeah,
now
right.
if it's not all covered in chrome, it's nothing, eh?
Yeah. Now it's the other way. If you've got a single stack, it's like, oh my gosh, you're like groundbreaking because you only have one stack.
Well, it's like I keep telling you, I want to build a truck that's yellow on the bottom with a green hood and a white roof. 1 stack, 1 air cleaner,
Yeah.
away you go.
Actually, it'd be neat to build one with the stack coming out the hood too.
Yeah. You never get anybody to drive
No.
it. They might drive
Well,
it once. I
maybe-
mean, the one truck I just drove this spring, the drivers wouldn't drive it because the seat was 2 inches offset to the center. And they kept complaining about the seat was no good.
Yeah.
Well, didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out.
Yeah, right. Just
But
fix the
everybody
seat.
kept refusing to drive it. I liked the truck. But
Yeah. Well, I think maybe what we should do is we should build a drag truck. We'll get one. We'll put a 892 in it, throw some big injectors in it, maybe a little bit of propane injection, put the pipe out the hood, and it can be, I don't know, what could we call it? We could call it the old school truck and do burnouts with it, and it'll be the classic green and yellow log truck with the pipe out the hood, and it won't be a chrome pipe, just a rusty straight pipe. Yeah, there. Now we're talking
no,
with the flopper.
just build one to haul logs with. You'd be so different that nobody'll even.
Well, that's true, but I don't haul logs.
No, I'll drive it.
Okay, well, there we go.
Preferably an LW or actually an old Hayes would work too.
An old Hayes. Well, I could support an old Hayes and an old LW. They don't make them anymore. I mean, it is a Kenworth, so I guess, and I mean, it is the world's second best truck. So I guess I can't knock a Kenworth that bad because, I mean, there is only one King, Peterbilt, but, and really, well, you guys probably have already known if you follow my channel is that we had lots of Kenworths back in the day, and
well, I had 38 trucks in total, not all at one time. 9 was the most I had at one time,
yeah,
and it was good when we were making money. But like everything, it changes, and with logging, it's one day chicken, next day feathers, and
yeah,
if you can survive the ups and downs, it's good.
yeah. I think that's probably the best advice is to to make sure you survive the ups and downs. So when it's good, don't get carried away and save for that rainy day, because if it's good, it will get
Well,
worse.
we never ever used to just figure on the good days.
Yeah.
We always worked, and you always knew that you were going to be laid off because we had fire season in the summer, and lots of our best holidays were on fire season.
Yeah, right.
And you're going to get fire season in the summer, and like growing up at the coast, we used to have to come to the interior in the winter, and it was never guaranteed. There were days we got snowed out, and we didn't work steady. And the guys now work way steadier than we ever did.
Yeah, right.
But you worked to survive, and you didn't have all the toys.
Yeah.
And if you went broke, well,
Yeah.
I can remember when you were little, we had to cash in our pop bottles to get milk to feed you.
Wow.
But there was no Visa, there was no credit, and it's not that we were broke, it's just we were between paydays, and I didn't believe in getting a drag all the time. So we went scrounging our pop bottles and cashed them in. It's no big deal. But
meanwhile, as a kid, I thought it was great because it's like, woo! Well, we've talked about it before, about trip to California when I was a kid, and it was, I believe you were shut down for fire season and had $500 in the bank, and that was it. And like you say, no credit card. So
and we came home with $100.
Yeah. Went to Disneyland, went to California on $400, and me as a kid in a camper cruising down the California coast, it was like the best childhood ever. And yet, not knowing that really, times were tough, but and I guess that's a great thing about being a kid. You never really know, and it just goes to show you don't need a bunch of fancy stuff and a bunch of money to have fun.
Well, lots of times you're happier when you're broke than you are when you have lots of money.
Yeah.
I've never had lots of money because I always spend it. You make do, and that's the trouble with today. Everybody's looking for more money, more money. Well, money doesn't buy you happiness. Money just buys you things. Yeah,
true enough. That's some good advice right there. But no, super. Well, everybody, that's my dad, Jim Chamberlain. He's going to be on the channel, hopefully more. Maybe he could come work on the truck a little more.
Well, I was watching you, the way you work on the truck. You never worked that fast for me.
I was a teenager. What else would I do?
I want to get an old truck of my own too. I'm going to go get it. We might have to take a trip here in a little while down to Logan Lake if that truck's still there. I'm going to go buy it. It's an old Peterbilt with steel fenders.
Oh yeah, now we're talking. Yeah.
It's only got 8,000 hours on it, but it kind of run into the back of something.
Well, there you heard it, guys. Maybe we'll have to make a video about going to check this thing out, if nothing else. So we'll go for a father-son trip in low and slow, and because you know what, even though he's low, he ain't that slow. But mind you, if we loaded him right up, he might be a little bit slower. But
they all go fast downhill.
That's true. So if you could give all the drivers out there in the world one piece of advice, what do you think it would be?
Relax, slow down, and enjoy life.
Yeah.
Don't get so worried about every little thing. And in traffic, don't do something stupid. If people cut you off, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You don't run over them, but if they don't care for their own safety, why should you?
Yeah.
And just don't get excited.
Well, and I always remembered what you'd tell the drivers back in the day when we had all the trucks was there's no load that can't wait when it's upside down in a ditch. So if you're tired, stop, have a rest, take a break. And
you're never late when you get there the same time the truck does.
That's true. Yeah. Right on. Well, anyways, guys, this is my dad. This is where I come from. So if I'm a little bit crazy, you know what? I get it all from him. And, the charm and good looks too. So, what do you say? Thanks for watching. Until next time, this is Peterbilt Mike. Cheers.